And let's go around the country. I got several more whispers and intel. It just always makes me feel like a CIA agent when we talk like that. I thought about getting one of those IFBs that run down the sleeve and you just talking it like that sometimes. But I don't believe in sleeves, so we can't do that. So let's talk about Texas. Boy, we got to lead with it again, don't we? We still don't have a quarterback, but we do have a headline that again was kind of predictable, but still refreshing to hear. Offense was much improved. So that's good. Scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2. Sark confirms offense much improved. So there are two ways you can take this. When someone tells you quarterbacks performed equally, that doesn't really tell you any of the story, because if we're both terrible, well, we're equal. If we're both Hall of Famers, maybe we're both equal. So when I get told both quarterbacks kind of performed at the same level yesterday, that's telling me a lot to really tell me nothing. So it greatly helped when Sark afterwards said they both played winning football today. And the reason you know that's probably not BS is because last week he was not shy at all about telling you they were not good today. So there was a nice little quantum leap in production this week, apparently, between Casey Thompson and man, what in the world? Hudson Card. Yeah, who did I have in my head? Kyle McCord. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, so Hudson Card and Casey Thompson, that's live. That's one of the risks of doing live, whatever we do, web. It's good to hear that, because Steve Sarkisian, he's not a guy who beats around the bush about that stuff. But also, Xavier Worthy is a guy who continues to flash. He made several electric plays yesterday. Explosive plays are going to be so critical for them, because again, here's where we are now. We're in a position where it's becoming increasingly obvious there will not be one of these quarterbacks who separate. Having said that, I told you last week, I think it's becoming more and more likely they just run a true two-quarterback system in week 1. They asked Sark about it yesterday, and he didn't discount that it's a possibility, but he also didn't confirm he was going to do it. But what he did do is he tipped his hand fairly well. He said, well, in an ideal world, I mean, we're picking a guy. Now, we haven't decided on that yet, but in an ideal world, we're picking a guy. Which probably means they're not going to go into that game thinking 50-50. They're not going to go into that game thinking, all right, first 2 drives for one, second 2 drives for the other. I think they're going to roll with a guy. Who's it going to be? I don't know who that's going to be yet. I know Card, who I just remember the name of, took a majority of the first-team reps this week. By the way, that B-roll with Sark walking around with Bevo is classic, and shooting that cannon, that's great. So it's a very important week, just like last week, of Texas practice. But Xavier Worthy, regardless who wins this job, going to be a big facet of this offense this year. Now I want to go to Oklahoma. And I was talking to someone really close to the program today for a little while. And I wanted to kind of build off of, or maybe even shoot down, some of the nasty narrative word that's out there about Oklahoma right now. If people don't buy into Oklahoma, usually it sounds something like this. I'm not buying into Oklahoma. You mean the team that lost to Iowa State and Kansas State last year? I'm not buying into them. That's the why, or that's the what, I guess. Everyone knows the what. You got to get closer. You got to pull out your magnifying glass every now and then and tell me the why. Why did they? Well, when you zoom in to Oklahoma's season last year, especially when they lost those games earlier in the year, they didn't have Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, they didn't have a ground game they could rely on. They couldn't put teams away. That's what they couldn't rely on. And so has that changed this year? Well, yes, in a big way, it's changed. And anytime you talk to someone, as I did earlier today, that's kind of close to the program, man, they all want to talk about several names. They want to talk about Eric Gray, but they want to talk about Kennedy Brooks, who's back this year. Trey Bradford, the LSU transfer. I mean, those are 3 dependable names in the backfield at the tailback position. You have right there, just in that one sentence, you have rectified a major problem you had early in the year last year. Now, does that mean that you're incapable of losing some games this year? Of course not. You can still lose games, but it won't be an apples-to-apples comparison. It won't be for the same reasons you lost them last year. Now, there will be some lazy analysis out there of people who say, I don't like them this year because they lost those games. And when they lose one, if they do this year, they'll say, I told you, I knew it. You didn't know anything. You didn't know anything more than the person who wins the lottery knew what the numbers were going to be. It's just someone had to be right, and so that person ended up being right. That, though, the running back depth that they have, they are very happy with, and also, and this is no mystery, the defensive depth. And this is a situation where, like I've mentioned a few times, Clayton Smith is a name I keep bringing up. That's a guy who is going to play big-time football for them eventually, but he doesn't have to play as a true freshman. and he doesn't have to play because he's got 2 or 3 names in front of him. That was not the case a few years ago, pre-Alex Grinch. That was not the case. They would have to put kids out on the field, probably as a freshman, who were ill-equipped from a fundamental and technician standpoint to play winning football. And as a result, you saw guys really talented get put in a blender on Saturday afternoons. You won't see that this year. It doesn't make them immune from losing, but you're going to have to play at a really high level, and it's not going to be because you put them on skates physically that you beat them this year. Now I want to go to Penn State. I haven't talked about the Nittany Lions in a couple of weeks. I was also talking to someone close to them today, and man, this is close to being a really good team. The person I talked to was not Jesse, by the way, even though he is on the other end of this broadcast right now. Bravely, and I mean bravely, executing the show through a hurricane. We have a Florida crew, and we have a Connecticut crew. The Florida crew has not dealt with a hurricane yet. Our Connecticut crew is working through a hurricane tonight, so we really appreciate that. We'll probably send them T-shirts. Personalized T-shirts. But Penn State's so close to being a really good program. They're a good program. Penn State's so close to being a really good team this year. There's a lot to like. When you look at them, you see so many areas that you want to bookmark and saying, well, that's a strength. That's a relative strength. They're pretty good there. And you keep looking and you keep saying, all right, let me find the weaknesses. And there are some relative weaknesses, but it's so obvious that it comes down to one thing. And so they seem set at offensive line. I think 4 out of those 5 positions are set. I was reading Sean Fitz's stuff over on Lions 247 today. Really solid at running back. They got 2 potential standouts at receiver. Now, Jahan Dotson, that you already know about. Parker Washington is a name you should know about, but maybe you don't because you didn't watch last year. The Temple transfer really needs to pan out for him to be what they can be on the defensive line. But, I mean, inside linebacker, question mark, probably need to find another safety back there opposite Brisker, but it becomes so obvious that those question marks are relative. Most teams would love to have just those question marks. Sean Clifford, that's where the premium is at quarterback. So it's the most obvious thing, but it's so the biggest thing here. When they brought in Mike Yurcich, everyone thought to themselves, what kind of marriage is this? Sean Clifford at quarterback, Yurcich offensive coordinator. And the hope, I think people almost want to speak it into existence, is his skill set fits a lot better with what Yurcich wants to do. We've got good running backs. We'll have a good enough offensive line. We've got a couple of complementary pieces at wide receiver. I didn't even mention tight end. They love what they are at tight end. But it doesn't really matter if you get average quarterback play. And so whatever it takes to take Sean Clifford's game to the next level, you just got to hope and pray that Mike Yurcich is the guy to pull that out of him. Because if he can, and if you all of a sudden get elevated quarterback play there, this is a good enough team to beat Wisconsin. This is a good enough team to beat Auburn. This is a good enough team to beat Indiana. This is the part where I try and recite Penn State's schedule off the top of my head. I know eventually the Buckeyes are coming. That's what I know. And it's a road trip to Columbus. But the thing about it is, you don't have to go undefeated in this game, especially this year. Like you can make some special things happen. There it is. They got a game at Iowa. All those games are winnable. And they can have a puncher's chance at Ohio State if all that stuff were to come together and gel. But you find me outside of that game at Ohio State, if you're watching on YouTube, you find me the insurmountable Herculean hurdle that they would have to clear that they can't clear if we knock a few of those dominoes down. And all of a sudden you make 2020 a distant memory. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let that sizzle for a second. What about a team I've been asked to talk about several times now, and I've neglected it, and it's my fault, and I take full responsibility. Georgia Tech. I've made some noise about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, bold prediction, probably not going to win the ACC this year, but that's not what we're looking for. Expectation level needs to be relative. A lot of times, one of the sad byproducts of the college football playoff era is if you're not expected to contend for the playoff, people say, well, they'll suck this year. Well, everyone's standard is not that in any given year. So the standard, for example, at Georgia Tech, they've won 3 games each of the last 2 seasons. So if they win 6 this year, that is a quantum leap of improvement. They will not be in the Final Four, but that is a quantum leap in improvement. How do they get there? Because this is one of the tougher schedules in the ACC and college football. Jeff Collins will tell you that. How do they get there? Well, as you look at this schedule here, I think there are several losses if they repeat at quarterback the number 53.7, because that was the completion percentage last year for Jeff Sims. Now, he showed you some things against Florida State that got a lot of people excited in week 1, and then they faltered. There was a lot of turnover issues. They think that they've rectified that. That was good for 115th in the country last year from teams that played. So they think they've rectified that. And the thing about it is, you get them to 59%, it's a lot better. They are very fast at slot. They are very good catching the ball out of the backfield. They've got some complementary pieces here. They got one of the best running backs in the conference. But they got to be able to complete passes. They got to be able to sustain drives. They got to be able to score is really the name of the game. And they couldn't do it to a high enough degree last year because there was no consistency in the pass game and there were too many turnovers. So judge them. All I'm asking you is judge Georgia Tech by the proper standard. And the standard is not, well, they're not Clemson. Well, they weren't North Carolina this year. Interestingly enough, that North Carolina game is played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's a neutral site game. And you're not going to give much of a chance, nor am I, when they go to Clemson. But that Georgia Tech game, if you want to really pull a ground-altering upset early in the year in the ACC, have Georgia Tech beat North Carolina in Atlanta. That would be a big one because I don't think anyone's even circling that for North Carolina. So have that happen. What about Texas Tech? Yes, I said it. I think there's probably a bet or two out there that we just decided a winner on. The bet was probably, are they going to talk about Texas Tech at any point in the preseason? Yup. And why am I bringing them up? I'm not just doing it to check a box. So I'm having a little conversation with a person I would label a Big 10 or a Big 12 insider this week. I know insiders, and some of them live in the Big 12. For now, I don't know what that portion of land will be called in the future, but for now it's called the Big 12. And out of all the teams, when I asked, what's a program coaches are talking about that no one's talking about, he said, oh, that's easy, Texas Tech. And I said, interesting, tell me more. And he proceeded to tell me more. He said, first off, you got to understand, everybody looks at schedule. And I already kind of knew about the scheduling dynamics. But he said, forget about the schedule for a second. Like, you can look that up on your own. Do you understand that they went and got transfers from 10 different FBS programs over the offseason, excuse me, almost said the O word, over the period of time that resides between spring ball and the start of the regular season? That period of time, they went and got 10. Well, they got guys from 10 different programs. One of them is Tyler Shuck, who was the starting quarterback at Oregon last year. So they will at the very least have experience at quarterback, but it's the size at what you would call the skill positions. It's the size there that has a lot of defensive staffs out there worried. See, a lot of those staffs, they don't get so scared anymore about the speedy wide receiver because they feel like, a lot of them run those stack defenses where they feel like you can run around all day. We'll do to you what Barry Odom did in the SEC last year to everyone not named Bama, essentially. They don't worry about that. But when you have a bunch of guys who are 6'5", which Texas Tech has this year, and you can just win 50-50 balls all day, you can turn 50-50s into 30-70s or 70-30s, that's what worries them. And they've got that at Texas Tech. It's a really tough name, so hold on, let me go slow. Eric Ezukanma, probably not right. I do know this. He's their returning leading receiver, all Big 12 guy. Last one to do that in Lubbock was named Michael Crabtree, who I'm told did big things out there. But also, they've got a 6'5" freshman out there. Bradley, I believe is his name. Tight end is 6'5". They got a lot of returning experience. Now, a lot of programs have that. But there are some specific matchup issues that have some staffs out in the Big 12 worried. Now, you want to know what the scheduling dynamics were. Let me pull out this freshly printed piece of paper. This almost sounds fake, but it's not. Jesse, I should have told you to make this graphic. I know you've been busy today. Never mind. Okay, so I want you to visualize this for me. There are a lot of situations that we would call scheduling dynamic edges. And one of them, two of them, three of them stand out immediately. So TCU has a 3-game stretch that goes Texas, at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma. Iowa State has a 3-game stretch that goes Texas, at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma. They're the same. Notice a pattern. Oklahoma State has a 3-game stretch that goes TCU, at Texas Tech, Oklahoma. To wrap it up, because I have to talk slow, because a lot of times if you can't look at the piece of paper, this kind of just all bleeds together. Texas Tech is in a sandwich spot, the middle of it, the jelly part of it, no less than 3 times this year for contending teams. There are 3 different contending programs in the Big 12 that go to Texas Tech the week before they play Oklahoma. 2 out of those 3 teams also play Texas the week before they play Texas Tech, which is the week before they play Oklahoma. So a lot of schedulers are looking at Texas Tech and saying, hey, I don't bet, but if you guys bet futures, bet the over. And then another group of people, the coaches, who are saying, hey, they got a lot of size. I don't know how we're going to cover some of these guys. So if you guys, I'm not a betting man myself, but if you do, bet the over. So I may just bet the team total over for Texas Tech. So those are some camp intel and whispers from elsewhere around the country.